Yes, ladies and gentlemen, my name's Jack Farmer, and this is the Evolution of Movies show. I'm not alone, though. I'm joined here, as always, by James, Chippy, and Andrew Rossi. And look, guys, we've seen this show before. Usually, I try to allude to characters in the movie that we watch that you guys may represent, but I'm at a loss for words this time. Let's just start by saying, how are you guys doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. This was an interesting watch, and I'm very excited to chat about it.
Yes.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad this is my pick. I'm just gonna call it out as it is. Look, you can say what you want about this movie, but you will not forget it. That's all I can say.
Absolutely not. Let's dive into it. I'm eager to get to it, so I'm going to get through these opening segments first. First off, this is how the show works. We watch movies and we talk about them like it's a book club, but we call it the evolution of movies because we always pick a movie that came out 1 year after the last movie. So we started with a movie in 1990, then in 91, 92. Now we're to 2009, and that means next week we go to 2010, but we're not getting ahead of ourselves. This is 2009, a time when movies were all about heroes stepping outside of the lines to serve justice, from The Watchmen to Inglourious Bastards, and of course, Crank, High Voltage, starring Jason Statham.
Oh.
We aren't talking about any of those movies, though. We're talking about Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans, a movie Roger Ebert gave 4 stars, and IMDb describes as Terrence McDonough is a drug and gambling addled detective in post-Katrina New Orleans investigating the killing of 5 immigrants. So, Andy, first, had you seen The Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans before this viewing? What were your thoughts going into it? And can you believe it got 4 stars, the most stars of any Roger Ebert rating that we've kept track of so far on this show?
That is crazy. But yeah, I kind of almost respect Ebert more now that he liked Bad Lieutenant,
Ports of
Call, New Orleans. What a crazy title. Man, I had never heard of this movie, didn't know it existed. I'm so glad that James put this in the atmosphere, whatever that is, but I'm glad you brought it to our attention because it was a wild ride. I have a lot of questions, and I'm just glad it's there. I'm glad this is something that I now have in my brain, and I could recommend it to other people now.
Yeah, I knew nothing about this movie at all. And per James' request, I did not look at the trailer. I didn't look up the synopsis. I knew nothing about it. In fact, usually I will prepare the beginning of my notes, the stuff like other movies that came out that year, et cetera, before watching the movie, just so I can kind of take care of those. This time I said, nope, I'm not doing anything until I watch the movie first. And this thing was like a fever dream. It just had so much stuff happening. And I would describe, like, just the way I would describe it is it was like they had a brainstorming meeting to think about like what they could put in the movie. And they started the brainstorm saying, look, it's a brainstorming session. No idea is a bad idea. And they lived by that throughout the entire creation of the movie. And they just put everything into this movie that came up to them.
I felt like that too. I almost felt like the editor was given free reign to be like, yeah, editor, if you think of anything you want to just throw in there at different times, go nuts. And he's like, yeah, okay. Yeah, let me have some drinks, smoke a little doob, see what happens.
Everything they put in this movie. And it felt like I was watching it because no other show. So I'll take notes. Usually I just kind of take notes and then I kind of just write down things that happen and then I'll clean it up. And then, so I know what happened. But I have not had more notes for any movie than this movie. I was like constantly writing, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. It was like a TV show. Like every 15 minutes was like, wow. Like I was like, wow, so much has happened. We must be almost done. And I paused it and we were halfway through the movie. I was like, oh my goodness. Like, there's so much stuff happening.
James. And you didn't even tell us Val Kilmer was in it.
No, that's the other thing. By the way, every scene has a new person. You go, oh, hey, they're in this movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's so many people you stop and go, oh my gosh, Exhibit's in this movie. Val Kilmer's in this movie. Like, there's so many people you just go, oh, okay, I guess he's in this too. Very kind of like True Romance in a lot of ways for people who've seen that movie. But James, this was your pick. This was a wild ride. I'm so excited to break it down. But tell us about why you picked this movie.
Yeah, well, like I said, I had heard of this movie. This movie came out, what, 09, right? I had heard of it, but it's one of those movies that kind of went under the radar. I don't know many people that saw it, and I remember seeing like the previews for it, but back then I didn't know it was that kind of movie. And randomly, me and my wife, we were, during this COVID pandemic, you're just randomly watching stuff streaming. We couldn't find anything. Excuse me. But we saw this on Peacock, and I was like, oh, well, it's 86% Rotten Tomatoes. Let's watch it. And the first, like I said, let's say 18. I literally looked at the timestamp. First 18 minutes, it is what it is. But we all know when it gets to a specific scene, you're like, oh, this is the kind of movie this is. So I don't know. When I saw it, look, this is full Nicolas Cage. This is Nick Cage going full Nick Cage. And as you said in a brainstorming meeting, I imagine Werner Herzog is like, Nick, when I say action, just do whatever you want. Like, just have fun.
Whatever I want.
Right?
Yep.
Right? Hold my coffee. Nick Cage, I mean, he's unhinged. He's living by a code in this movie. It's a perfect vehicle for his overacting. I'm sorry. I think this is his best working years, personally, up until that point, besides like Leaving Las Vegas and all those kind of movies. I think it's a great film for him. And it's insane. It's insane,
You're right. You really do kind of get that feeling he wasn't sleeping and he was on drugs and he was, because he just seems so, especially by the end, he just seems out of his mind. Yes. He seems bonkers. And we'll talk about the scene. I don't want to get to it, but there's a scene where he does say, like, I'm on an hour and a half of sleep for the past 3 days. And I was like, I believe you.
Yeah, right. That's method acting.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that you hope that they were filming in sequence, right, Andy? Because we'll talk about it. But his character really changes at certain points in the film. It's like, oh, you're making that choice now.
Oh, yeah.
It's great stuff, man.
Well,
I love it.
We got to get into it. Before we do, though, as always, I want to thank everyone who's watching and listening, whether it be on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. Thank you for hitting the like button, which I'm assuming you're going to do, leaving comments, sharing the show, subscribing, 5-star reviews, all that good stuff. Let's get into this movie, though. We're going to start with it's the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, and Cage and Kilmer find a prisoner who is about to drown. So Cage saves him, and this causes a back injury that leads him to using Vicodin and Coke and everything else, but the job gets him promoted to lieutenant. So this is the opening scene setting the stage. James, I always like to go to you with these setups. This is the world we live in here. Clearly, Cage and Kilmer are kind of jerks, but Cage does what needs to be done to save the guy in the cell. Tell us about the world that we've built so far.
Yeah. Oops, sorry, I just dropped my phone. Yeah, watching it the second time, that opening scene meant something different to me. Because throughout the film, look, let's just call it what it is. Nick Cage is always on some kind of substance, whether it's a painkiller or there's something going in his nose. I'm surprised he wasn't shooting up. Like, I felt like he probably should have been using every drug. But there is a thing about him that he does live by a code. At a certain point in the film, like, his captain says, you're my best cop, which is kind of hard to believe. But he does have a code of trying to help others in some kind of crazy way. And because that's basically the plot of the film, is he's trying to help solve a case of 5 immigrants being killed. And he seems dedicated to it, considering how his character is such a drug addict and kind of off the cuff, but he has a code of helping people, and to his own peril. It's kind of what made him addicted to drugs, by helping this guy during Katrina, it's like they're almost trying to make a political statement, but not too much. But I thought it was interesting because, like I said, they could have just left him to die. Val Kilmer's like, yeah, let's keep it moving. Well, I don't know. He mentioned something about, they'll look at his dental records or something like that. And he's like, no, hold on. And then, that's down at the beginning of the movie. But that kind of lets you know what kind of character he is.
And it's something about this movie. We talk about how it seems like they do all this stuff, but there's actually a lot of reason behind what they do. Like they're gambling and taking bets over this guy, and they're betting the photos of the wife, or they're betting money. And that is sort of teasing the fact that gambling is going to become an issue for him down the road. Andy, something that happened with this scene where we find out about the back injury, it kind of happened a lot. This movie doesn't really hold your hand. Like, you sort of like, because they didn't really show his back get injured. You just had to assume and know that he hurt his back saving this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It did a few times with that kind of thing where you just have to kind of assume like, oh, I guess that's what it means.
Yeah, they did quite a few of the 6 months later, 1 year later sort of things, which I like, because it's like you don't need to see all that. They kind of get you right to the point. And yeah, opening this movie up, I was like, what is James getting us into? It opens up on like a snake, and then Val Kilmer's in it, and I'm like, didn't know that. And then Nick Cage's hair, just right away, I'm like, this guy's hair is ridiculous. But I wrote this down. Val Kilmer looks at pictures of the girl, and it just sounded so weird of Val Kilmer to say this. He goes, "Hey, nice hooters." and then they talk about Cage wearing $55 underwear. It's just outrageous. And then the guy that Cage goes and saves. Right from the beginning, I'm like, what did James get us into? And I'm so glad that he did.
Was this just me, or did this look and feel like it was filmed in the late 90s as opposed to the late 2000s, though? Like, it felt closer to Twister than it did to Iron Man in time, but it came out after Iron Man. But the something about it just felt very old. Like even the film seemed like it was older. But you alluded to 6 months later. We are taken 6 months after this, and Cage is investigating a crime scene and notices a fish in a cup with a poem written about it. After this, he goes to Eva Mendez's place for more coke and an implied hookup, then gets some prescription drugs while having a Karen moment before heading to the interrogation room. Then he takes a nap, and Muntz, who works in the evidence room, explains he can no longer help him steal stuff from there. To wrap the day up, Cage goes to a club where he gets high and hooks up with a chick while making her boyfriend watch. Andy, walk us through this sex scene.
Well, so what he went for was that scene's insane. I think that's when all of a sudden, like, I'm like, okay, James is taken for a ride, and
that's the scene.
Yes.
That's it. Yeah, that's when this is a different movie. That's when I go, yeah, it's probably good that I'm watching this by myself and didn't invite anybody with me. But I thought the scene was going to be that pharmacy scene is amazing. I love I just wrote he goes 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. It's Nicolas Cage Ferrari there, because just that whole buildup, he just goes so crazy. He's running back there, grabbing shit. Like, I just love, he just gets super unhinged during that pharmacy.
But he has a code once again. He's like, okay, it's 20. My copay is $23. Here's 40. Buy a couple of drinks. And then he tells the cop to get the fuck out of my way, like the security guy. So it's all this different stuff, right? He's not a complete jerk, but he is, right?
Yeah. Well, how is he not a complete jerk in that later scene, though? He makes the guy watch him with his girlfriend.
Oh, that's the best scene.
He shoots him in the ass. Like, where are you going?
Yeah.
I love how this guy, by the way, how old is that guy supposed to be? Because you can't tell my dad. My parents can't find out. How old are you? Like,
it's such the bro reaction. Like, he's not worried about anything else but his dad finding out and freaking, It reminds me like a teen movie, right? Because he's borrowing his dad's car, or something like that.
Yeah, I thought the girl, by the way, was a prostitute at first, because she was like, it seemed like she was very interested in Nick Cage right away.
Yeah, it's a quick turnaround.
Yeah, like she was like, "Oh, I'm scared," and then suddenly she's like, "Let me blow the smoke into your mouth with my mouth." I was like, "Wow,
this thing is $60,000." You can give it to your girlfriend or your mother. Yeah, she's very slutty. And like I said, my favorite scene, and Anthony, you saw me. I tagged you in the post. Come on. Where's the kibble? Where's the kibble?
Where's the kibble?
That's the best line in cinema history. I'm sorry, folks.
Great.
I've watched that scene multiple times. Okay.
I actually had that line written down. There's some lines in there that feel like they just get put in there just because to make it sound cool. Like when he's like, "What's in your back pocket?" I'm not gonna get stuck, am I?
Yeah.
You're not gonna, like. Who says, I'm not gonna get stuck.
Yeah, I'd be confused if I was the guy. I'd be like, I don't think so.
What do you mean by that? What about his lines to the girl? It's insane. He's like, "Did your parents molest you?
God.
Do they know you don't have any panties on?" And I mean, it's like he's basically fornicating with this girl in the corner. And as you said, the dude tries to run and he shoots his gun. He says, "No, you come back. You stay here and watch. You watch your girlfriend." What? This is insane.
And his voice, his voice, Cage's voice during all this, it's so out of control. And I noticed throughout this film, his voice changes. Like throughout this movie,
I have that noted.
Weird voices.
It's like he went full on Brando midway through the film. He says, "Can I try some mothballs in my mouth? And let's just see what happens." And one of hers, I was like, "Go ahead." Why are you even asking me, Mr. Cage?
There were times I was thinking that, like, I was wondering, was it intentional that his voice changed so much over the course, or was it just I don't know what was going on there, but again,
his voice changed at least 3 times in the film.
I'm glad you guys noticed that too, because I wrote that. I'm like, is this voice different again?
It was funny watching this again, all the cameos, because Eva Mendes, I mean, she's a star in the movie, so I guess it wasn't really that big of a. I didn't know she was in it, but I was still like, oh, she's in this. But then General Zod just being a dude
Michael Shannon, kind of like an imp. He's really he plays those kind of characters. Let's not forget about the DA or the prosecutor, something good husband. I don't know if you guys caught that on the door. I'm like, are you kidding me? I know we'll get to that, but these names, they're so on the nose and crazy. Like,
Yeah, I was saying what a made up name. Someone made that name up to get out of trouble, is what I think.
Good husband.
It's like Saul Goodman.
But after that, Cage goes back to Eva's place and scares off her client before taking his coke, and she seems happy about it, which didn't make much sense to me. But he goes to the funeral of the guys who were killed, and that leads him to a store that takes deliveries, and that leads him to a delivery boy who is hiding outside of a window of an old folks' home, and the boy says it was Big Fate who killed the people. This takes them to a house where Cage arrests someone who works for Big Fate. That leads to Cage to a bookie who adds half a point in exchange for getting his daughter out of a ticket. While handling this, he runs into an old friend, and after some artsy alligator shots, Cage and the woman go back to her place to fool around, but really, Cage just wants more Oxycontin from the evidence room. She's now uninterested in helping Cage, so he tells the bookie he can't help with the ticket, but he doubles down and bets more money, even though he's already in the hole. I mean, I don't know. It's so hard to break this. Every single scene, like, well, there's, James, we'll start with you. We'll start at the end and we'll work our way backwards. Never a good thing in a movie when a guy says he's in the hole with a bookie, but he's going to double down. It's never worked out, right?
No, it isn't. But I love it because Brad Dourif, who we've all seen, and I mean, he's been acting since like the dawn of time. Yeah, he's in that movie, which I've never seen, but obviously he's such an endearing bookie. He's not scary. I mean, he knows some scary people, quote unquote, but I just love the phrasing. He's like, okay, put me down for 2 dimes, and I'm trying to figure, okay, how much is that? I didn't really realize what the amount was till later. And he sells, he's 5K in the hole. Look, I'm sorry. I got to go back to this assisted living scene with the actor.
You can go anywhere you guys want with this movie.
Go anywhere. And we'll get back because there's another assisted living scene.
Yes.
In the third act is brilliant. We're not going to get to that one yet. But when the guy climbs in from the window and he asks him, "Did you see who killed him?" Did you guys notice the grandson? He didn't answer him. He kind of shook his head. like he's in a stroke or something. Like for like 20 seconds, he never answered him. Like I just thought it was odd, but I was like, yeah, this obviously this is the movie we're watching.
Yeah.
I don't even know what other scene. Look, dude, there's so many scenes. I don't even know what scenes you just went over.
The alligator, Firuza
the alligator
Craft.
scene.
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys thought. Okay, first of all, there's a dead alligator on the road. Then we see the chick from The Craft in it, right?
Which, of course, she's in this.
Of course, she's in it.
Again, another person. I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, you.
You're in
and it's something weird. Bless her heart, but it looked like she hadn't been on set in a while. She you see when she puts her foot on the car, it looked like she was trying to find somewhere to put it. Like she was thinking about the choice to put her foot. It was just insane. And then with this alligator scene,
that's what was insane. Her putting
I know, not the alligator, but
I mean, I buy everything else in this.
Yeah, but the foot in the car, I didn't buy that choice.
That was like a teenager going to watch U2 in 2008.
Yeah, right, exactly. Look, what the, you know what? Like, are you kidding me? With this alligator scene, like, what is the POV? This alligator has feelings. Okay, he's obviously looking at his or her dead brethren on the side of the road. I don't know. I mean, I don't even know if we even got into the iguana scene.
Not yet.
No.
Okay, well,
not yet.
Look, go ahead, Andy. I mean, I could be here all day.
Yeah, I mean, I just wrote WTF when I saw the alligator. I'm like, what is happening? And the girl from The Craft, that was great. One thing I just wanted to definitely talk about was all the bookie stuff. I think Jack, you and I have talked about this before with like teams that you don't get the licensing for. So like in the background of like the bookie scenes, if you looked at it, it looked like it was like 1978 football, but it was like totally teams that were like not real. And they're just like, I think he's like keeps betting on Louisiana or something like that. It's definitely Louisiana. Like very made up, sports lingo. And for some reason that really frustrated me. I'm like, talk about real teams, man. But
the something you guys haven't mentioned yet, by the way, I love the cop that he talks to try to get the ticket turned around, and the cop is just screaming at him as soon as he shows up. He's like, hey, were you the one to issue this ticket? I do things by the book. And you're like, whoa, take a chill pill, dude.
Guy's coming in
too
hot.
Much coffee, baby. Take it easy.
I could imagine like his acting coach really working him out before he got on set. This is a scene with Nicolas Cage. You got to deliver. You got to emote. You got to give him something.
I think that's it. I was thinking about that. I'm like, man, if I'm ever in a Nicolas Cage movie, if I'm in this, I gotta get rolling. I mean, I just gotta just shave my head and just like snot all over him, kick him in the nuts.
You could imagine. You could imagine Nick Cage though. Maybe he delivered it more, subtle. And Nick's like, okay, on the next take, just yell at me, top of your lungs. Just try it that way.
I imagine he yelled at him the first take, and Cage said, "No, you got to give me more."
Yeah,
no.
Guy's like, I lost my voice.
But this was another thing where I don't know. Maybe I was just missing it or whatnot. But you're going through this journey. They're not like I said, holding your hand. Like he literally is. He goes to the funeral, and the lady's like, "I loved all these kids. This is how I knew them." And then suddenly he's going to a store to check on the delivery boy. And then they're like, we don't know who the delivery boys are. And then suddenly he's going to an old folks home saying, your son's a delivery boy,
that
right?
Was so great. Yeah.
And then the boy literally just walks in through the window.
Yeah, so random.
Like they do not hold your hand. They don't say, this is the person, go here. You're just assuming like, okay, I guess this is what's happening next. It's almost like Memento in forward order, but I still have no idea what's going on. And
or why he's so dedicated to this thing, you know what I mean? Like, because him finding, I guess when they find out about big fate, that's a big thing, because this is a drug guy. But you don't, so in a movie like this, you would assume right off the bat that he's only interested in solving this because there's like money involved or drugs. And maybe at a certain point in the film, that's kind of a side thing for him to make off of it, but not just for the sake of it, because he's a crooked cop. It's because he's gotten into some troubled water and he's got to, help people out and also himself out. So once again, even though he's making all these crazy decisions, he's not unlikable, quote unquote. Like he's doing it for the wrong thing for the right reasons, as they say.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's why he keeps getting promoted every 6 months. It seems.
No.
Yeah, for a guy whose life is just in shambles,
I know.
it seems very interesting that and also just to say real quick, the government agencies, we always joke they're idiots in these shows. How does no one in the police force notice this guy's high all the time?
Yeah, and speaking of his high, I was actually kind of proud of myself that because he did, going back to his I guess we'll call it a sex scene, whatever that was. He's doing heroin, and then he's got to go to Eva Mendez's house to do blow to kind of get back on track. And I remember thinking, I go, oh yeah, from my movie watching, I understand that does make sense.
Yeah,
that's safe. That seems safe.
As a movie watching detective, that adds up.
Yeah, that seems right. Yeah.
After that, while staking out a place, Cage argues with Val about iguanas and their existence, and we get another Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas vibe with the iguanas.
Totally.
They decide to leave SWAT out of it and go into a house alone and find a guy and question him more about Big Fate. That leads him to a lady who's complaining about feeding a dog, and her husband is going to AA. And it's apparently Cage's mom and dad, I guess. So he takes the dog and leaves at Eva Mendez's place. He then goes back to the interrogation room, and Big Fate shows up and turns himself in with his lawyer. Now Cage needs to pick up the dog because Eva isn't back when she said she would be. So he drives the dog to Biloxi, and this dog already seems like it's way more trouble than just leaving him at home while the guy's at the meeting. Cage finds Eva with Daryl coming along. She's been getting hit by a client who threatens Nicolas Cage because his dad knows people, and he says, whoa. A lot of times.
Oh yeah.
This was a smaller cameo. I don't know if you guys know who that guy was, but I just finished watching the show Vice Principals, and he's
he's a great
Empire.
actor, man. He's a great character actor.
Yeah, and he is probably one of my favorite, not used a lot of people in this, not used a lot in this movie guy. I love his
Oh yeah.
Big mistake.
Whoa. Big mistake.
Whoa.
He's so good.
I imagine they're like, hey, you only got 3 lines. And he's like, oh, I'm going to say 3 lines. Whoa. Big mistake. Oh, yeah. Whoa. Oh, yeah. Big mistake. I'm still saying my 3 lines.
To stand out in a movie with Nicolas Cage, X to the Z exhibit, and Val Kilmer.
He's only in the movie twice in very memorable scenes, both.
Yeah.
He so again, they don't really explain what house they're staking out, what the SWAT team has to do with anything, what the iguanas are and why they're real, or why they're going into this house. You just kind of have to infer who this is and that they're continued like. And again, maybe I'm missing it because I'm so caught up in everything else, but it just feels like. Again, it's like when you're having a nightmare or something. Things are just happening, and you're like, I assume this is what the world is.
You just accept it all, even all the iguana stuff. I'm like, because they keep the camera on the iguana for a long time, and I'm just like
different shots. That's just so like it's like a handheld, right? It's like even a different camera.
Yeah,
that's when he let his son film that day. They're like, yeah, whatever you want to do. I want to shoot iguanas. Okay,
singing the blues.
Yeah, you mentioned the editor got to do whatever he wanted. I feel like the editor forgot to edit things out and just like that was like a test shot, and he just like I'm gonna go home early and leave it in.
I gotta feed the dog.
Yeah, and Andy, you have dogs. Like, would it be so terrible just leave the dog home for the afternoon while he goes through? Like, how long is an AA meeting?
Yeah, that seemed very strange, and the poor dog didn't even have a name. Or Nicolas Cage didn't even know his name.
Yeah.
Stifler's mom's in it. Jennifer.
Yeah, Stifler's mom. Hello.
It's pretty great in it herself.
Oh, hey, what's she doing? And she just shows up as this drunk lady.
Off of beer, which is kind of different, right? Because I guess most time you see people getting drunk off of like hard liquor, stuff like that. But I guess she just drinks, a lot of light beer.
And they make it a point later too. I thought you was just beer. Like, almost like,
you're not.
If it's something else, you have a problem. If it's just a shit ton of beer, you're fine.
Yeah. I just had 47 beers this morning. It's not a big deal.
Oh my gosh.
As long as it's just beer.
Is he supposed to be the smartest detective? Because he basically, when they go to SWAT, everyone's got their guns drawn. He's like, just 1 second, and then he goes to like the next door neighbor's duplex. He's like, oh, I think there's something in the backyard or something. He goes through there, goes to the back door, which is unlocked, to the next door neighbor, and then catches the guy that's like, with his gun pointing at the front door of his place. Yeah. I'm just like, I don't know. It's just funny. He's supposed to be one step ahead of the rest of the guys. He's like the best detective, even though he's like coked out of his mind all the time. I don't know. And when he goes to, I don't know, man. I don't even know where to go. But the Shea Wingham, as you said, that's a great cameo.
And I'm also trying to place like what Eva's position is, because clearly she's like a prostitute. But
a high-priced prostitute
must be, because she's like at the top, like lives in a penthouse of incredible views. But then she's in some casino hotel getting hit by a guy. Like I know but I guess he was he threatens saying he's very well connected, and Nicolas Cage doesn't seem too bothered by it. But I don't think Nicolas Cage gets too bothered by anything, or he gets bothered by everything. I can't remember what's the right answer.
Have we gotten to the scene where he meets the 3 flunkies after when the guy comes as restitution? He says he knows people. We haven't gotten to that scene yet.
No. That's going to be in just a second. Yeah.
I don't think we've got to the senior home again yet, have we?
No, we haven't got.
I'm telling you, I was right.
That's so another seminal moment.
So much happens in this, and again, like, because I forgot. Oh yeah, by the way, Daryl is with them, the witness. Because I forgot to mention that now he has to keep Daryl with him because they're worried about losing him as a witness. Speaking of losing him as a witness, Daryl runs away, and so Eva and Cage go looking for him, and this leads Cage back to the hairdresser. And while questioning her, he starts suffocating an old woman and calling her the C word and telling her she should be dead and threatening to kill them because Daryl is on a plane to England. And it turns out the old lady is the mom of a congressman. When questioned about it by Public Integrity, he lies and says it never happened. Also, the bookie is now coming after Cage, but there's no time to wait because Frankie needs him, and she's being held up by a mob dude and his friends, the guy that Cage chased off originally, because he wasn't lying. He did know the mob guys, and they want $50,000 and a hookup with Eva. Like, so much stuff is going on here. James, we'll start with you. Let's start from the beginning of this. Nicolas Cage talking to the hairdresser, shaving while he's at it, talking about multitasking. This scene where he loses it.
This is too funny because obviously in the first scene, the lady's getting her hair done. It's like, excuse me, gentlemen, I'm not going to let you come in here and not acknowledge my existence, right? While she's getting her hair done, right?
Yeah.
And Sean Hatosi's in it. Who anyone knows him? He's Animal Kingdom.
From Alpha Dog.
Alpha Dog. And he plays such a different character in this movie. He's kind of like a really soft-spoken cop. He's not really, most of the time he plays a guy with a lot of edge to him. So, but this scene, when he comes up to the old lady after they've told him that he's, that the guy's on he went on a plane to England, and he's like, caressing the old lady's face, takes out her breathing tube, and then, he gets information, then he puts it in, he's like, there, good girl, suck it in, suck it in, and I'm like, what?
I was watching that thinking that poor the actress in that, like, I'm thinking she was like scared out of her mind. Yes. Like, I think she legit was like scared. Like, and he's like sticking the thing back in her nose. It's very crazy.
When he pulls his gun out and starts pointing it at both the old ladies, saying, this is why our fucking country's ruined because of people like you. That's one of the most insane. These are old people, okay? These people are from like the World War II era, beyond. Normally, this kind of phrasing is reserved for like young people, right? Yeah. It's just the most insane thing him to say to these people, and it's so funny because he really does kind of feign like, oh, I didn't do anything wrong when he's being questioned by his captain, Public Integrity. He's like, no, I didn't do anything.
His voice is so weird during that scene too. Like, that's like voice number 5 for the movie. Is
this strange. The mothball voice?
Yeah, this is where I think that is where he in the movie, he definitely goes to completely unhinged after this point. This is definitely the character changing.
Yeah.
He's no longer just a cop that's kind of like reckless. Now he's just bonkers.
I feel like he's at like, have you guys ever seen that hot sauce show where they like whatever it's ranked, it's like the hotter the hot sauce gets?
I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it.
They have like different ways to it's not a Richter scale, but it's something like that. I feel like that's Cage. He's coming in with some hot sauce in the beginning, but now we're getting like the super hot sauce where you're like, whoa, you're actually gonna do that?
When I had to rewind it, because when he goes back to Eva's place and the mob guys are there,
Dave.
Who are you? You?
I'm Dave.
You?
Dave.
Yeah.
I had to rewind it because I couldn't remember who they were. Like, they didn't really explain who they were there for. I thought they were from the bookie at first, but then they were
I
like,
can see that.
But then they were like, "Oh yeah, because she stole from our guy," and I was like, "Wait, what?" And I was like, "Who is this?" And I was like, "Oh yeah,
yeah."
Oh yeah, the guy.
Oh yeah.
Whoa, that's what happened.
He's so clever and thinking on his feet, though. He's like, oh, and another thing, my guys would like to get a taste. And instead of him, like, because he's obviously in love with her, or he has like feelings for her, and he doesn't like, like wiggle out, like, no, you can't do that. He's like, well, just to let he's thinking on top of his feet. Well, she has another client coming in 15 minutes. So your boys have to be quick. Can they do it in that much time? And the guy says, well, they could do it in 15 seconds before what you just told us. You know,
right?
I thought that was just interesting. He said, okay, well, we'll come back in a couple of days when we get our money, and then we'll have, we're gonna fornicate with her.
Right.
And I just thought it was so clever how he did it. He's always thinking on the top of his feet.
I'd love it if those henchmen, by the way, had like a day plan and was like, okay, 2 days, sex with prostitute, like write it in there, and like, hey, so you want to come to the barbecue later this afternoon? Well, I will, but I got to go have sex with the prostitute first.
Yeah,
it's been in the calendar
right here
for a week.
9:30. And one more thing, did you guys notice? I didn't notice the first time I saw it, but like every time he was saying, when they were doing like the vision board, if they're trying to figure out the people connected to Big Fate, he's like, and another guy named G. he laughed every time he said the name G. It was on, we're done. Like every time he said the name G, he would always laugh. I don't know.
But it felt like this scene, the last scene where he was choking out the old lady and telling her that she's ruining the country. That's where he lost it. But it felt like with the mob guys, that's where the world around him was starting to say it lost it. Now it's all the hens are coming back to roost, as they say. It continues at Cage's dad's house. No one's getting along, and Public Integrity is there to say that the guy that sent the goons is also connected to City Hall. So now Cage is stripped of his gun, and then he spends some time with Eva Mendes looking for a silver spoon in a shed. Back at the department, Cage is stripped of being on the street and now is in the property room, which is right where he wants to be. And he immediately starts stealing drugs. Cage then goes to Big Fate and offers to help him in exchange for money, saying he never cared about the murders. He tips off Big Fate and about the cops, and now the cops are giving him the side eye. But all in all, though, things are working out, and Cage and Big Fate are becoming partners. This is where the bad and bad lieutenant really starts to sink in. Andy, I'm going to start with you here. How does this police commissioner chief not realize that a guy who has back pain and is clearly addicted to Vicodin should not be in the evidence room?
I don't know, but he keeps getting promoted, so he's doing something right.
And he doesn't wear an evidence room outfit. Normally those guys are in like a uniform. He's still in that old ass suit he's been wearing the whole movie.
There's just something about Nicolas Cage and that crazy hair and crazy voice hanging out with Exhibit, though. That's just so great. I don't know. It's just like I could have seen that like for a long time.
Oh
yeah,
that's the best.
It's the silver spoon scene. I guess it plays out a bit later on, but it felt very. Why? Like, she's getting into a fight. Why are you taking this old abandoned woodshed or whatever it was? It looks like it hadn't been used in a very long time. Probably spiders everywhere, and being like, let's look around for an old silver spoon. Like, she's not a 5-year-old. She's gonna be like, I don't want to dig through your garbage for an old spoon.
If it was like an old necklace or something, and then he presents it to her later, maybe I don't know. It's a tender moment, but even though it comes up later, I would have to watch it again to see what he's saying, to see what the payoff is. Because normally a scene like that would be like indicative of like a deeper theme of the film.
Oh yeah, we need to watch this again.
I didn't catch that. Yeah, I didn't really catch
it. Next week we'll review this movie again.
yeah, of course. At the same time.
But it was, I mean, because it does come back a little bit, but just in general, it felt very like, like Andy, your family's over. Do you think they would be like? Could you imagine taking them to a dirty shed and being like, "Hey, Dad, do you want to help me find this old spoon I lost when I was a kid?" No, I don't want to walk through a dirty shed.
I'll get you a new one.
Yeah,
I'm busy sanding something, son. Get out of here. Get out of here.
But yeah,
let's not forget the exhibit scene, though.
Yeah,
Jack.
Exhibit looked good, by the way. He must have.
He was actually not bad in this film too. Like even just acting wise, we haven't seen a lot of stuff, and he looked good.
I mean, he looked like trimmed down and young. He
he did. It was good. But let's not forget about that scene when they're talking about I thought it was actually a great scene with Nick Cage. When they're in the car, he's like, where's my money? He's like, hey, I'll get you your money. When? When? Okay, how about that? Like, it's just really like a great scene back and forth. And when he pulls the gun out and he's like pointing it at them, he's like, I'll kill all y'all. And I was actually worried about him because he's pointing the gun while he can't see someone behind him. And he's like, till the break of dawn. Till the break of dawn, baby. I was like, only Nick Cage could do that in a movie. It's like brilliant acting and overacting at the same time. Yeah. I don't know. I just love that scene.
Yeah.
I feel like that was not in the script. Like that was just like
that whole scene.
I
don't think Exhibit was even in the movie. He just showed up with
it. Yeah, Nicolas Cage and him are friends in real life, and he was like, "Why don't you come hang out with me? We're getting high on set." And then the director's like, "You're not really getting high, are you?" And he's like, "To the break of dawn."
Break it down, baby.
So Cage pulls over a football player buying dope and blackmails him into some points shaving. So Cage and Fate then get the drugs, and Cage gets his money after that freak out in the car and goes to the bookie, paying him off and betting more money on Louisiana. Eva decides to go to AA, and the mob guys find Cage and follow him to Big Fate. After Cage and Fate take a hit from the crack pipe, the mob guys show up and try to rip off Big Fate. So there's a big shootout, and Big Fate's side wins while Bluegrass plays, and they even shoot their dancing souls, which is something I can't believe I wrote down. Everything seems to be playing out as Frankie goes to rehab. Mr. Oyag says the mob is off Cage's back, and the complaints against him are being withdrawn. Also, the bookie says his bet paid off and he won big. Also, the crack pipe that Cage smoked with Big Fate was planted at the scene, and now Fate is linked to the murders. It's a good day. They wrap it up by Cage giving Eva a rusty spoon and a raid at Big Fate's place where Kilmer wants to kill him, but Cage brings him in.
There's a lot to talk about here.
There's that scene where they're like, Eva's like where everyone's coming into the police station one after another, basically giving him good news. I would have bet my bottom dollar that was all a hallucination.
Me too. I thought it was a dream when I first saw it. I was like, this can't be. This must be a dream sequence.
Yeah. But it was all real. They just said, hey, we're running out of film. Let's tie up these loose ends.
Oh, man. So we have to talk about him with Exhibit and talking about the gazelle and the elk, and he's sprayed antlers and all that. It is insanity, this whole scene. And Nicolas Cage just goes insane during this scene. I don't even know how to describe it any better. James, I want to hear you talk about it, but it's crazy. It's the craziest stuff I've ever seen in my life. Like his facial expressions and his voice, everything's just madness.
How do you not laughing? I was so I was watching it on my couch and my eyes are like wide, like he's gonna do something. Someone needs to like calm him down.
Well, no, it's definitely like you think he's because when he's sitting across from Big Fate as they're cutting the coke or whatever, you remember like there's a gun pointing at him, right? There's a
under the
gun pointing
desk.
at him under the desk, and then he comes over and tells a story, and they're dropping the N bombs, and it's all crazy, and at a certain point he's sharing the crack pipe, which is a smart kind of thing he's doing. He's like, oh, you got to try my lucky crack pipe.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I don't know if you guys caught it. I mean, I saw it. I don't know if I caught it the first time I saw it. I wasn't thinking that he's doing something.
I wasn't thinking
here.
that. I thought he was best friends with Exhibit. I was kind of sad later.
Right.
Yeah. No, at a certain point. But yes, when the other guys come in and say, oh, you owe us $50K, why don't we take all the drugs and shoot him? His soul is dancing.
Yeah.
Come
That's
on.
a real what you're saying is not a metaphor.
Shoot him again.
Yeah, no.
Still dancing.
And then like the camera pushing in on Cage, and he's kind of has that kind of, stroke look on his face. He's just kind of in his fever dream. I'm assuming he's the only one that could see the soul. The soul wasn't just dancing. Like I said, it was an extra, like in those like, low budget films. It was like a dude like in a tracksuit, like breakdancing. It didn't even look like the dead guy that they were imitating.
That was his soul.
No.
His soul was a brother in a tracksuit.
And I thought it was crazy.
Moves.
Sorry. Typically in most movies, when the mob comes in, you're like, oh shit, mob's here. The mob's about to destroy everybody. This time, I saw Dave and his crew. I'm like, probably not a good time. You got Exhibit and Nicolas Cage off his ass. I'm like, this is not a good move for you guys. You don't know what you just walked into.
Because even if they killed Nicolas Cage, I think he was so high that the crack would have powered that body for another 48 hours.
Tyrone Biggums.
It would have been like a chicken with his head cut off. He still would have ran around and killed everybody.
Totally.
You're not putting him down.
Not a chance.
Oh my gosh.
This scene, you're right. But talk about the gazelle and stuff. There is no way in hell someone wrote that in advance. That was pure high insanity ad-libbing. No way someone was like, writing his name, colon, and then the lines. Then antlers sprouted from his head. No, that was
laughs maniacally.
Laughs maniacally.
It's implied. Nicolas Cage laughs maniacally.
That script had to have said Nicolas Cage does Nicolas Cage, and then a blank
Nicolas Cage monologue.
Yes, goes insane for
and for Nick Cage to go insane, that's an oxymoron, right? Or I don't even know whether the right phrasing is. Like, he is insane.
Yeah.
So we entered another level of insanity during this time.
I actually went back and watched that scene again because I'm like, what did I just watch?
Yeah, I was saying, what is he talking about? What the hell? And no one questions him. Like, Exhibit's not like, wait, what are you talking about? It's just like, you're my kind of cop. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, what? No, that's terrifying. I wouldn't want to work with this guy. He's insane.
And most gangsters of Exhibit stature would have probably killed, or he was planning to probably kill him. But he kind of talks crazy to these gangsters all the time, and they're just kind of going with it. They're like amused by him the whole time. Even though us as an audience, we're like, dude, are you gonna say that to them? Like, you're really pushing the limit here.
I like how all this insanity happens. This is similar to Jack last week with his 3 points about Taken. The thing I didn't buy at all. I'm like, I'll buy the soul dancing. I'll buy all that. But when the bookie comes in and he's excited to give him his money, I'm like, what kind of bookie does that? I've never seen a bookie that actually is like, hey, congratulations. You just destroyed my job. Here's your winnings.
I owe you a ton of money. Which also, because I always get crabby when something happens that doesn't necessarily matter in the movie. And that made me a little bit crabby because he did have because they did have that whole thing like, oh, the guy's not playing, but the team is winning anyways. And and I was like, well, if they're gonna win, like, why even show that scene? It didn't matter in the end. Maybe that's
well, that's I guess to lead us to assume, oh, he didn't get it, but it's weird. right? Because they're losing, or I couldn't remember how the spread went, but they're either losing or winning by a lot, right? They're winning by too much.
Yeah.
Well, the bookie should never be happy to give you money, though. Like, it's not like the people in Vegas want you to win. They don't want you to win. So this bookie, like, coming in like, hey, Nick Cage, here's your money. Congrats. I'm out of a job now.
Right. Yeah, it was very odd that's how that went. But again, that's why it felt fake, is because he was so happy to see him. And that's not how bookies are. If anything, they're like, hey, yeah, you won, but how about we put that money down on this next bet? It's a sure thing or whatever. And try to never pay you.
And like you guys mentioned, the guy comes in. He's like, hey, forget about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
We're cool.
Things are really going well for him.
Yeah. Well, speaking of going well, we get to the end here, and a year later, Eva's pregnant. Cage is being promoted to captain again. Everyone seems to be clean now. The Cage is now working the night shift and back to his thing, attacking people outside of the club. And at a hotel, the guy that is working is the same guy he saved in the beginning of the movie. And that guy says he's going to help Cage out. So he takes him to an aquarium, and Cage jokingly says he's still mad the guy made him ruin his expensive underwear. This was a weird wrap up for me, because it felt like they said, hey, look, everyone had a happy ending. Things worked out. And I was like, okay, cool. But then they teased that he's still a terrible person. But then now this guy's helping him. It was a weird. I wasn't sure what to take away from this. James, what did you take away from the end of this movie?
I don't know. Yeah, it was a little confusing. I mean, look, they wrap it up, obviously, right? It comes full circle. In a way, he saved this guy's life. And I mean, you can maybe make the assumption that the guy is returning the favor at the end of the movie. He's kind of saving him. Because the thing is, everyone in Cage's inner circle has like all made improvements. And so is he. But he's still kind of living a lie. I couldn't remember. I was starting to doze off a bit when I was watching this last night. But
great sales pitch for the movie.
Yeah, I know, right? I know, right? It's okay. It makes you sleep. But look, I sleep every movie I watch. So I at least fell asleep like the last 5 minutes.
Do fish have dreams?
Yeah, do fish have dreams? Look, like I say, it's coming full circle. You know, sometimes you think, okay, the actions I do, what effect do they have? Right. And I can't remember, but the guy was basically saying all these things that happened for him because Cage saved his life. Right. So coming full circle once again, even though Cage is this crazy guy that we've gone on this crazy journey with, he still helps people, and he still has like good intentions sometimes, even when they're not like initial. He doesn't seek them. So I don't know. I mean, other than that, yeah, it's just kind of a weird dream at the end where I guess they're seeing sharks. I was hoping like a shark was just going to like just bust through the window at some point. You know, like I thought like, oh, maybe they'll do that. Or they'll show a shark smoking a joint with its fin or something in the water.
Yeah, I would have bought anything. Pretty much anything that would have happened at the end, I would have went, uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, what was interesting is because these bad things were happening, because it showed, everyone's life got better, his got better, and James, to your point, it was still better, but he was still living a lie. I kept thinking something was going to happen to kind of give him a comeuppance for his bad things. But I guess what we were supposed to see, to your point, is that even though he does all these terrible things, it is for the greater good, and there is someone out there he's helped along the way.
Exactly.
And maybe that's what he's really doing it for.
So what's the lesson in all this?
The lesson is don't ruin expensive underwear.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Yeah, I don't know what the theme of this movie. You know, you see movies and they're supposed to have themes and this and that. I don't know what it is with this film. It's just a wild ride, to be honest with you. Yeah. I don't really know what it is. But he does live by code. Once again, he is a guy that helps solve some cases, and he cares about immigrants at a certain point in this movie. But I don't know. It's just a wild ride. That's basically what it is.
Yeah. Annie and James and both of you guys, I guess. Any final takeaways? I'll say I thought this was your point, a wild ride. I think it was fun. It was definitely it felt like everything was happening very fast. Like there's not a dull moment. I felt like this. If this was today, it would have been like a mini series on Netflix over a movie. But I thought it was fun. It was crazy. It was Yeah, a lot of stuff happening. But Andy and James, just any final thoughts?
I think I'm so glad I watched this, because now this is going to be like, if I never, or if I meet somebody at a party and I never know what to say, I'll just be like, oh, have you ever seen this movie? And if another person has, we will have so much to talk about. So I'm just happy that I now have this in my back pocket as like a thing of a talking point in the future, because there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah. James, any closing comments?
Yeah, like I said, it was a pleasant surprise for me. I'm glad that I kind of randomly watched it. And when I heard about this movie, I guess over 10 years ago, I'm almost glad I didn't see it then. I'm glad I saw it now because of the kind of stuff I'm into, the kind of TV shows like Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, things like that. So me seeing it at this point, it was such a wild ride, and it was a pleasant surprise. Nick Cage's movies. After that, I tried to stream a bunch of his movies on like Hulu and this and that, and I couldn't get through like 10 minutes of any of them.
Yeah,
because let's say we know what it is with most of the movies he does now. It's very miss more than hit.
Yes,
right. But I thought he was just at prime form. Whatever he does best, this is a perfect kind of film for Nick Cage. And I wish he would do more of this kind of stuff, to be honest with you.
I said this about someone else on this show before, but I think it goes for him too. I think he'd be a fantastic Joker or Riddler in a Batman movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's so out there and insane and crazy. I think he could play a Batman type villain very well.
You said it about Matthew Lillard, and I think like if I were Matthew Lillard going in for an audition, he's like, I got this. I so got the Riddler. And then Cage walks in. And
he sees Cage in the waiting room.
He's like, I'm just going to go home.
In general, if you see Cage in the waiting room, you're probably not going to get it.
Nick Cage is supposed to play Superman years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been fascinating. I mean, to see him play anything. I mean, I know he was a superhero in the Kick-Ass movie. He was like the parent of somebody.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's just great.
Yeah.
What a character.
Fun movie. If you haven't seen it, I don't know why you're watching this show, but if you haven't, you've gotten this far, you should check it out. Andy, it's time for 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Yeah. So the guy we didn't talk about too much, but we did talk about, was Val Kilmer.
Yes.
It's great to see Val Kilmer. His line, nice Hooters, in the beginning.
Yes.
So Val Kilmer was in one of my favorite movies called Heat.
Oh, such a good movie. And I already know how this ends.
Great film.
He has a couple of great actors in there, as well as Val Kilmer. One of them is Robert De Niro. Mm-hmm. Robert De Niro is in a movie called Sleepers, which is also with Kevin Bacon.
Heat, by the way, such a good movie. So that does it for this week. Next week, we go to 2010 for a movie I can't believe I'm saying it isn't nearly as crazy as the one we just watched, even though it's got cartoons in it. Scott Pilgrim versus the World for next week. So if you're a fan of that movie, show up and watch along or watch the show next week. We're going to chat all about it. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's a fun one. I think everyone will like it. But Andy, after that, we go to 2011. And what movie are we watching?
I just have to say, from what you said, like, is this one not as crazy as what we just watched? I don't think we're ever going to get as crazy as we just watched, because I was just thinking, my pick, Bridesmaids, Melissa McCarthy, I believe, takes a poop in a sink. And that's not even crazy compared to this last movie.
There's at least 10 moments in Bad Lieutenant that is more crazy than that. So Bridesmaids for 2011 in 2 weeks. And then James, do we have a 2012?
Well, I was just picking one during our broadcast. Now I totally forgot it was my turn. But I mean, look, this is in full Nick Cage stuff. I was looking for another Nick Cage movie. Look, I'm trying to pick between two movies between one of my favorite actors of all time, and I think you know who it is, Andy, my man.
Denzel.
Oh yeah, Denzel. So we're gonna go. I could pick Flight, which is almost another drug-addled movie, but I don't. I want to stop that theme. We're gonna go with Safe House with Denzel and Ryan Reynolds. Denzel had done some action before, but this is like when you went to that next level of him being like an action guy and being with like another actor, like a young up-and-coming actor. And this is when he started doing a lot of those movies.
For everyone listening, make sure to check out Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and then check our show out next week. Then Bridesmaids in 2 weeks, and Safe House in 3 weeks. And that takes us to 2012. I can't believe we're already going to be within a decade of current movies. But that does it for us on this week's episode. James Shippey, where can we find you online?
You can find me at JShippey2 on Twitter and at JEShippey2 on Instagram.
And Andy Rossi.
And you can find me at Just Andy Rossi.
And you can find me at Real Jack Farmer across all social media. That does it for the Evolution of Movies show. We will see you guys next time for, once again, 2010 Scott Pilgrim versus the World. We'll talk about it next week, but it's a movie from next year.